Like she cared for Sparrow too, and Sparrow really enjoyed it. Yeah, she knew when Gabby came we were going to be making something or learning something, and she'd instantly start digging through Gabby's bags to find out what activity we were going to do.
Not only did we get the assistance with this program, but we also made a really good friend. I'm happy to call Gabby our friend.
I think the relationship that we've built has been just, she's a part of the family.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Visit mendoready.org. It's our one-stop shop for emergency information. You can sign up for emergency alerts, find your pre-established evacuation zone on our current emergencies map, and find hazard and preparedness information.
Imagine you're faced with a disaster such as a wildfire, and you're ordered to evacuate. I'll bet you wish you had more time in that moment. Now's your chance to buy yourself that time. Sign up for Nixle and Mendo Alerts on our website, mendoready.org. Do it today.
If you want your family to be as resilient as possible, it's important to take some time today and visit mendoready.org, where you can look up your pre-established evacuation zones on our current emergencies map. You can also find important tools to help maintain your situational awareness, such as the Alert California wildfire cameras and the Caltrans road conditions cameras. We hope you'll take some time today to prepare so that your family can be Mendo ready. Thank you.
When I first realized that I was going to be a parent, I was super scared. After 2 or 3 weeks of meeting in the home visiting program, I was totally comfortable with the fact that I was going to have a baby. Yes, I was still scared, but at the same time, I felt like I had some sense of strength behind me.
If I didn't have those resources that Jeanette provided me, I think it would be harder now.
I got into the program and I realized, like, oh, this is nice. And now look at me, I work at a family resource center with parents and families, all this stuff.
I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity to meet my home visitor, because without her, I think that I would be 10 steps behind from where I'm at right now.
Pero pues aquí pues ya los enseñan un poquito más cosas que uno no sabía. Cómo cuidarla, cómo desarrollarla, cómo educarla, y pues es algo bien, porque pues cosas que yo no sabía, pues ya usted nos las dijo y todo como consejos, y pues muchas cosas que se aprendieron.
I don't know what's normal for a 22-month-old baby or an 18-month-old baby, you know. When we get together, we usually discuss and get some progress made with the baby. It makes me feel
Committee
comfortable.
meeting to order. It's 9:03. The clerk, could you do the roll call?
Chair Hashak?
Here.
Supervisor McGordy?
Here.
Okay, and Mr. DeShield, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right. Morning, everybody. Let's see, we've got a lot of items on the agenda today. So we're going to start off with item 2A, which is discussion and possible action, including acceptance of presentation from EKI, Environment and Water Inc. on the Mendocino County Drought Resilience Plan Development and Drought Task Force Participation Project. And this is part of the SB 552 requirement. So I'm going to look to Mr. Howard DeShiel.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Supervisor McGordy. Our consultant will present most of the technical issues around the law and compliance. But with me here today are the people who've really been working on this, doing most of the work. And they'll be available to staff, Amber and Laura and Josie, to answer any specific questions you have. So after Amir goes through his part of the presentation, our staff will give their portion and be available for questions. So thanks.
Good morning. As Director DeShiel mentioned, I'm Amir Mani from EKI Environment and Water. And we are the consultant team supporting the water agency, the county water agency, and the UC cooperative extension in complying with the Senate Bill 552 and the development of the drought resiliency plan. Before I go into the presentation, can I please ask from the clerk to promote my colleagues, Haley and Andre Lee, to also panelists, please? So let me share my screen. And thank you for giving us this time. As I'm going to go through the PowerPoint and mention it there, this is the main venue of engagement for us throughout the development of this plan, and we are hoping to receive feedback and have fruitful discussions and input from the supervisors, from the county departments, from the stakeholders, and from the public here, as we have other engagement venues as well, but this is basically the main venue we're considering for the plan development. So throughout this presentation, that's going to take 25 to 30 minutes, possibly. I want to first offer that I know the structure of the meeting might not allow it, but please stop me if that's possible for questions, or if there is a need for input or additional information from us. We want this to be interactive as much as possible, and basically is handled more like a discussion than a presentation. So as I'm going to go through this PowerPoint, we wanted to, and we're going to explain the planning process for this drought resiliency plan. But we thought this first meeting can serve as an introduction to what is required, how we are approaching it and receiving feedback about that approach, what are the tools and venues that are available to engage with us and to make this transparent process more effective. What have we done, and kind of catch up everyone on what has been done during the past 3-4 months, and then what's next for us in terms of developing this plan, and what we basically need from everyone to increase the efficiency in terms of developing this plan into something that's really helpful, hopefully in the future droughts that hit the Mendocino County. So the first portion of the presentation would be just a background on the Senate bill that basically required this plan, and then the plan overview. Then we have the Drought Task Force, which is a separate section of the SB 552. Then we go throughout the stakeholder engagement that we're doing under the Drought Task Force, and that's where the UC Cooperative Extension would join our presentation. Then we have done part of the planning, that's the drought and water shortage risk assessment that I'm going to briefly go through the results of that. The next step for us would be working towards short-term and long-term responses. And I'm going to share our preliminary approach to developing those, and then basically the future schedule. So Senate Bill 552 was signed by the governor in September 2021. For those of you that's been who've been engaged with the previous route, basically 2020 to 2022, you have been already involved in parts of this Senate bill. The drought task force that's been held first as an emergency measure as a task force in 2021 by the Mendocino County, and then it was held under the Public Health and Safety Standing Committee, and now it's under this committee, is part of that Senate bill. So the bill itself has requirements, and it's basically it was initiated because of the most recent drought. The requirements go to small water suppliers, basically the water suppliers that have less than 3,000 connections, the county governments, and the state governments. So there are three parts to it. The part that we are really focused on today and throughout the development of this plan is the county requirement part. We are not covering the entire basically bill's requirements. So on the small water suppliers, there was a requirement for plans and other types of things to be done by the small water suppliers. On the county part, there were two main components that I'm going to go through that the counties were required to do. And then there are also requirements for State Board and Department of Water Resources to help everyone approach resiliency for drought. To comply with this, so the component that we are focused today in terms of the development of the drought resiliency plan, as I'm going to call it DRP, just for easier pronunciation. The Department of Water Resources started providing grants last year to counties in a form of technical assistance or financial assistance of up to $125,000, so they can initiate and develop this plan within a 1-year period. And that's where basically the County of Mendocino and the Water Agency last year applied for this grant and received the grant. That grant was basically initiated, if I'm not wrong, in May of 2024. And now we are basically using this financial assistance to develop this plan through this process.
Okay. Amir, I have a question.
Yes.
So the county to smaller and less than to do it. Are we collaborating with them, or are we making it better for everyone with this plan? I guess the question, that's my question.
That's a great question. So the requirements for the small water suppliers are a bit different than the county. They do have requirements. It's not covered under what we are doing and under this financial assistance. But as you mentioned, we are hoping throughout the development of this plan, as I'm going to go through a bit more detail in the next slides, we are hoping that it also contributes to their response to this basically legislation. So the coordination would definitely help everyone, but there are two basically separate buckets of compliance for small water suppliers in the county. So the county part is focused on support for the domestic well owners and the state small water system, basically the water users that don't have a larger water supplier to support them. They are basically supported by the county, and the county requirements under this legislation are about them. The small water suppliers need to basically comply with the requirements for their water supply towards their users. But again, the coordination here should help both parties.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor.
So at LAFCO, we're undergoing municipal service reviews right now for all of the coastal water companies. This would be a very good time to get that information into the general body of knowledge of this report, as well as kind of tap them to let them know if there are obligations. And I can tell you they're very poorly staffed. They can barely get together their required annual meetings because so many of the small water systems are under 30 hookups, and people live outside of the county. So this is going to be a real challenge for them to comply, and I see them in great need of technical assistance.
That's a good point, Supervisor McGordy. So I think so one thing that can be done is to reach out to DWR and the State Board and share that need. I know the State Board has technical assistance programs not specifically focused on this, but maybe we can work towards that. But again, it's not really covered under the scope of this that we're working here. I can work with water agency to see if there is a way forward to support them or basically bring some help for them.
Okay, we can go forward.
So the SB 552 county requirements. So again, this is focused just on the county part of the legislation. There are two main components to it. The first one is to establish a standing county drought task force. So this is the venue that the legislation wants each county to have to prepare for drought. So feedback is shared, discussions are made, decisions are made, education and outreach is done. So this is the venue that was basically required to be done before January 2022. And this is what the Mendocino County already did through different venues. So basically to facilitate drought and water shortage preparedness for state small water system and domestic wells, again, this part of the legislation for the county is focused on these two user types of water. And then invite representative as needed to these meetings to help out, to coordinate, as we just discussed, based on the question. The second part of the legislation goes to developing this DRP plan or drought resiliency plan. There is no timeline for it, but as I mentioned, based on how DWR, Department of Water Resources, moved for the grant and based on the education that's happening throughout the state, the expectation is for these plans to basically be developed this year through the funding that was provided. So, in terms of the DRP overview, the second part of this plan, so in terms of the DRP, so the plan itself, the Department of Water Resources published a guidebook to help everyone understand what's basically required under this plan, how it can be achieved. Basically set the general bar for different components of the plan. Based on the guidebook, and this figure that you see on the slide is from the guidebook itself. There are four main parts to this plan. So the first part is mostly data collection. And this data is very much generalized for counties. So the resolution goes to basically PLSS or like specific range in townships, but is intended to serve as a county-wide result or at least sub-county wide results to inform decision making for the plan. So what has been done in that part and through the guidebook is that the Department of Water Resources, in coordination with the State Board, used the data available to them and provided websites and web tools for the counties and other planning organization to use to develop this plan. So most of the data that's basically required based on the guidebook already exists throughout this tool and can be used by technical staff like us to inform the public and also use it for planning purposes. These should be combined also with local data that we have, for example, through the water agency, cities, and other water suppliers in the county.
Now, Mayor,
the second, yes.
Excuse me. On the presentation I have that was attached to the agenda item, it's got a green check to call for data collection and vulnerability. Okay, there you go.
Yes,
so that means
was
those have been completed.
Yes.
Okay.
So the first part was completed initially by state agencies and then by us, basically collecting the data, processing the data, combining it with some other sources that we thought would be helpful. The second part, that's vulnerability assessment, and as I went through the outline, is part of the risk assessment that we're going to present the results today. So that was also done, and we're looking for feedback on that analysis. And we're going to make appropriate revisions to it. And then this third and fourth part are the basic parts that are scheduled to be done as the next phases.
So I have a question or a comment.
Yes.
So for the data collection part,
yes,
and the things you have listed there, I'm not very confident that the information you have is worth anything. So just for the record, because I've been looking at water data now for close to 4 years, and we have so many data gaps in here about what we actually have available to us. It's something that really concerns me.
That's a great point, and we're aware of the data gaps that we have, and we have seen those data gaps actually even in these data sets as we communicated with the Water Agency, and we are in communication with State Board to try to fill. So that's where basically we're trying to combine local data, our knowledge with these data. Again, we're still gonna have data gaps, and the best way forward is to use the best available data we have that can support this planning. But also understand that's part of my presentation in the next slides, that this uncertainty exists. So in our planning, we need to basically include these wide uncertainty bands in our decision making and planning, and that's what we intend to do. But
And
yes.
it's not to say that we can't get it. I don't think anybody's taken the time to really look through it. There is historic data from the old water agency, and I suspect that if someone were to spend some time mining that, we would find a lot of the information. But I think that presently what I've been aware of in the last 4 years as a supervisor kind of focusing on water issues is that we're missing a lot.
We do. And again, I think it would be helpful when I go through the data, just the types of data that we need for this and how the risk assessment actually fits in the realm of planning. So we do have a lot of data gaps in terms of water planning and management overall in the county, and that's not hidden to anyone. But in terms of what we need here and the level of planning that we're intending to do here, there might be, a variable exposure to that type of data gap in terms of what we need and what we require. So again, data gaps exist. The best way forward as we see it, and we're looking for feedback from you, is to identify those data gaps and have them basically have a schedule to fill them as we need them. But also we need to do this plan, and it's better to have the plan considering the uncertainty than just waiting for those data to come in. So that's the approach that we're proposing to do. And then this is a living plan. It's not final after this year. It can be changed if better data is available in the future. So the vulnerability assessment, that's the second part of this planning process, is county specific, again, using the data that we have. The part of this is where are these users or assets, as they're normally called in risk assessment approaches, are located. So domestic wells, state small water system as they relate to the county. Where are they? And then what are their exposures to typical and expected risk factors, such as what comes from the drought. So water supply, water quality, wildfires, impacting their surface water diversions, all of those risk factors that I'm going to go through in the next plan. And the combination of this, the number of assets in the location and their exposure basically leads us to their vulnerability and the risk. Again, this plan is not going to focus just on the risk areas and the amount of risk. This is a county-wide plan to be prepared for the drought resiliency. These information just helps us understand, because the vulnerability to drought would be variable throughout the county. So there would be different risk factors that would be more important in different areas of the county. So this analysis basically helps us understand that variability and how we need to change our response actions in different parts of the county. But it doesn't mean the parts that show as low risk or few number of domestic wells are going to be excluded from this plan. So the third part is the management actions, basically based on our understanding. Now the collaboration and coordination part really kicks in the county to develop these short-term response actions and long-term response actions that basically work towards being more prepared for drought than the county was in 2020 to 2022 and 2013 to 15. And as you can see, towards the questions that Director McGordy asked, basically data gap filling is one of the long-term response actions that would be developed. So identifying data gaps and responding to filling those data gaps, providing a schedule implementation, working with other agencies would be one of those mitigation actions that we would consider. But also short-term response actions would be needed. As we all know, in the Mendocino County during the last drought, there were water hauling that was done. So there are things that need to be done in the short term when drought happens to just respond to the needs that exist. So those would be developed as a third part, and that's our basic next step as I'm going to go through. And then we bring everything together as the plan, as the final part of it. And we develop an implementation, we look for funding mechanisms, we look for things that basically now we have the plan, how we're going to execute it, and how we're going to make the execution effective. So that would be our last part of the planning process. As Supervisor Hashak just mentioned, the first two parts are done at this preliminary from us. We're going to present the results. We're looking for your feedback. Again, this is an open process. They can be changed throughout the planning and even after that. But right now, we're going to present these two steps and then move to the next step for the next meeting that we have. So, about
if
the
I could
schedule,
ask
yes.
a question.
Sure.
So with the management actions and the short-term response actions, you know, the mutual aid and intertie, the emergency and interim drinking water, are you, it seems like this is going to require, with Office of all the water agencies in the county and different entities to kind of be prepared for these short-term responses.
That's completely correct. And as I'm going to go through the drug task force, and I don't want to basically jump the gun on the explanation, might confuse the public. Yes, but we do have them as the core members, and I'm going to define the core members. But there will be there will be a need for a very effective coordination between county departments and also other water suppliers, as I'm going to mention, and we all know. County water supply system is a bit different than a lot of other counties. So county doesn't really own water in that sense. So the county would be the wheel and the clearinghouse, but we do need collaboration from other agencies outside the county to be able to do these things. So the collaboration extends outward from the county towards all the other core members and other members that I'm going to mention. So there is a definite need for very effective coordination and collaboration in planning and also in implementation when drought happens.
Okay, thank you.
So the timeline that we have, and these are the official meetings that we do have a schedule right now, but again, the public education and outreach and the coordination, as we just emphasized multiple times, they would happen. We might see the need to do, and through collaboration with the UC Cooperative Extension and the Water Agency, we might see the need to do interviews with local, stakeholders. Cooperative Extension may basically provide local venues for education and outreach outside what we identify here. But this is the official basically schedule as of now that we propose to do this. So the risk assessment part of the planning, as I mentioned, we've done it in August. There are three separate parts that you see on the schedule. So it's the chapters of the plan, the four basically parts. Now the first part is data collection, when we talk about it. So you see three here. The venue for engagement, our public official venue of engagement is the County Drought Task Force meetings that we are holding under this committee. And then we have community meetings that will be led by the Cooperative Extension through workshops that we use basically to have a more outreach and education that's more geared towards public. So in September, we already held a workshop. The Cooperative Extension led the workshop. It was a very effective one. We have a section of the PowerPoint that Laura will present to you in the next section. We are holding this CDTF meeting as our initial approach. We are scheduled to have two other County Drought Task Force meeting under this committee. One is right now scheduled to be in January. One is scheduled to be in March. So the January one would basically go through the results of short and long-term strategies that we developed, and the March one would be implementation roadmap, also including commenting. I'm going to go through them in more detail in a separate slide.
I just wanted to interrupt here. I did not receive an invitation, or if I did, I didn't see it, and I'm hurt because I mean this really should have been something I was at. So, Laura, make.
Yes, I'll make sure that happens due to Maguri. But so in May, basically we're scheduled to deliver this plan based on the grant timeline process from the department. That meeting, the final DRP, would be under the board. As of now, it's scheduled to be held under the Board of Supervisors meeting, not this committee. And the community meetings that we have, again, the workshop, we basically identified these two workshops, one in the beginning to educate public on how it's being started and the process, and then one in February to basically develop the results and get feedback from the public in February. So these are the two meetings that are scheduled. Now, the other part of the legislation that I want to go through before we actually get to what we have done up to now in terms of the outreach and the plan is the Drought Task Force. And we had this last year when we presented under the PHSR Standing Committee. But just a refresher on that, the requirement was for this to be established by the 1st of January 2022. This was done by the County of Mendocino. This was completely complied with. Then there's a requirement to have regularly scheduled meeting that be more intense when the drought happens, but less intense when you have normal conditions. And then this drought task force is supposed to provide that venue, that wheel, to share feedback, to participate, to basically coordinate in terms of responding to the drought. So this drought task force, as I said, was basically established. What we are doing right now is to try to have more engagement in it, to make it more efficient, and give it a better structure, basically improve its structure. And we are working with the County Water Agency and the Cooperative Extension in terms of doing that. In developing basically the first part that was done last year, we developed the draft charter for this drought task force. Again, that's a draft. It's not anything that's adopted, and it's a living document. But for now, based on as I said, based on the reality of water supply in the county, there are three types of membership. So the first one is public. Everyone basically is invited to this because this plan is towards domestic wells, state smalls, and public who don't have an individual water suppliers. But there are two types of membership that are notified for each meeting and are invited to participate other than a public in a specific way by the county. One are the core members. And the reason they are put as core is we think we do need their feedback and their collaboration to respond to drought specifically, and they can be expanded or limited. And then we have other members that still their input should be included and is encouraged, but they have other roles to play in terms of the planning. So we have, if I'm not mistaken, 7 core members as of now that are outside the county. So as Director Kashak mentioned, the county departments that we identified as core members are the Executive Audit Office, the Water Agency, Department of Transportation, Department of Public Health, and Office of Emergency Services. It doesn't mean that other county departments are not required or are not needed in terms of the coordination. These are just, as I said, just a definition of core members. We think they have a very high involvement for the success of this preparedness toward drought. Then we have major public water suppliers outside the county that we think they have also a great role to play based on the water supply structure in the county. So City of Ukiah, City of Fort Bragg, City of Willits, Russian River Flood Control and Conservation Improvement District, and Mendocino City Community Services District are the water suppliers that are invited as core members. The Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency is another entity that's a core member, and the Mendocino County Resource Conservation District is the last one. So these are the core members that we identified for the drought task force that are notified every time we have a meeting, specifically invited to provide feedback. Other members that are identified that are also notified to attend our tribes within the county, a State Water Resources Control Board, Department of Water Resources, other public water supply system. As we get data and contacts, they are added to our list. And then any resident that basically signs up to our notification system that the water agency would go through in our next slides.
I have a question on this because
Sure.
we did have a very good functioning drought ad hoc committee that had a lot of the stakeholders in it, and I don't know any lists of that, but we had the people who were purveying water that were likely to participate, and I see them missing from here, and it would be really good to dust that off and bring those people back in.
So we did start from that list, Supervisor McGordy, and we are populating that list. We are not removing anyone from it, it's just expanding.
Mm-hmm.
So they are all included,
Yeah,
and more are included in that, yes.
Yeah, I don't see for instance, the Anderson Valley Community Services District on that, who are regular participants. The city of Willits. Well, I guess you did mention cities, so I think there's more. So I'd like to go over the list with you and be sure we've captured everybody.
That sounds great. We will do. And we can add them as core members. Again, the function of core members does not mean there's anything specific here that's not available to other agencies that we didn't name. It's just right now we are basically working with the county, so the notification system and email system is being consistent even toward core members and other members. So everyone gets notified that signed up. And we have a very large basically stakeholder spreadsheet that we use for those as I'm assuming everyone got the invitation for this meeting as we send it out. But it would be good to basically complete the charter for sure.
And I would automatically include the Board of Supervisors. It's easy to notify us through clerk of the board. So that we know what's going on.
Yes. So as I said, this is the charter that we have. And I went through it again. How it is organized right now is having those names in it, but those can be expanded. Also, we are planning as needed to revise this document throughout this planning process, maybe use it as a wheel in terms of identifying some roles and responsibilities and how to coordinate. But that probably would be done in the implementation phase of plan development, as I mentioned in the schedule. So on this part, so we have done, as I mentioned, we have done some parts of the DRP planning, basically the chapter about the vulnerability and risk assessment. And we have held the first workshop, and we have implemented some measures in terms of better outreach, better notification, and better involvement in this meeting and the next meetings that I invite UC Cooperative Extension and Dr. Laura to please take on this part of the presentation. I think she will be in the room.
Yes, she is.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Amir. Just for the record, my name is Laura Garza. I'm the Water and Climate Change UC Cooperative Advisor. And so I'm going to go and talk a little bit about the stakeholder engagement, which is a fundamental part of the development of the DRP. In this section, I will talk about some of the action items that we've been doing for the stakeholder engagement, along with some of the outputs that we've gotten throughout this process. So the first action item is the engagement of the core members. All the members will receive email invitations to attend to the GGSC or BOS meetings where here the county drought task force convenes. Also, we also encourage all of the core members that participate to these meetings to also reach out to county staff. This is in the email of Amber said, to provide any feedback on the DRP development process. This is our first action item. Next one, please. The second one is we've done community meetings. These are also fundamental on the development of the DRP meetings because we provide sort of like a platform for the community to engage with this process. So we also encourage task force members to attend to this UC Cooperative Extension meetings. Again, the purpose of this community meetings are twofold. The first objective is for us to provide information about what is the drought resilience plan, why are we doing this, what is the Senate Bill 552, but also the other objective is to get some of the feedback from the community along with some of their issues or experiences that they've had through drought events, for example. The first workshop was successfully held on September 5th of 2024. The next one will be next year in February of 2025. Next, please. And so for this community meeting, we did a huge outreach effort. We distributed flyers throughout 78 community locations across the county. We went to Granges and supermarkets, to the coast, to community centers, to veteran centers, to post all of these flyers. We also went to different community events such as the Redwood Empire Fair and the Round Valley Blackberry Festival, where we had some of these posters there and some fact sheets and educational material as well. We also provided a presentation to the Hopland MAC, where we invited them to to these community meetings. We did this to have a one-on-one invitation with the community. We also had media engagement. So we held a radio interview on the Ecology Hour where we talk about climate change, droughts, water, and the county's DRP. We've also included some press releases. And then for the social media outreach, which also was a really key feature, we provided or promoted this event throughout, Facebook accounts and different web pages where the community could see what we were doing. And then at last, we created educational material in form of fact sheets about the development of the DRP in both English and Spanish. Next, please. And so the next action item, I already talked a little bit about it, but we had the first UC Cooperative Extension Community Workshop on the DRP, which was held on September 5th. This was a really well-attended workshop. We had 52 people that attended. This was a hybrid workshop so that we could, gather people that couldn't come to Ukiah. So we had 21 people in person and then 31 attendees online. The community groups that represented all of these 52 people included domestic well owners, community water systems. We had cities, NGOs, grassroots organizations, the MRCDs, the Sherwood Valley Band of Pono Indians, some news outlets, business owners, and irrigation districts. So as you can see, there were a lot of groups represented in this workshop. And then the location of the participants were from many different parts of the county, including Anderson Valley, Casper, Gualala, Hopland, Fort Bragg, and Mendocino in the coast, then Potter Valley, Redwood Valley, Ukiah, and Willits. So it was a really good a range of community representation, but also geographical representation. Some of the outcomes of the community workshop, again, as I mentioned, this workshop was a twofold objective, right? The first one was to inform about what is the DRP, but the second one, it was getting all of the feedback from the community. So we had really good active participation from community members. They were highly engaged. They were asking questions, providing suggestions, providing their experiences. And some of the discussion themes were revolved around concerns about their water availability. We also touch on strategies and barriers that they've had for accessing and managing their water during droughts. And then we also touch on the importance of community engagement. They were really excited to have this community meeting, but also they were asking for more of this engagement. So overall, the key takeaway is that we had this space provided to listen to the community, and then we got all of those ideas and feedback, and that will ultimately shape the DRP moving forward. Next one.
Just a time check. Is that we're at 9:43 right now, and we're like a little over halfway through the slides. So I'm just wondering what the overall plan is. Are we going to go through all the slides like this, or is there a way to?
I can just go and finish, and then I think Amir has another section, and then we can have questions, or I don't know how you want to do it, Amir.
I think we should. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, the question was to you, Amir.
Oh, I thought someone is providing input in the room. So I think I can cover the next part pretty quickly after Laura finishes, and then we will have some time, hopefully, for some discussion.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
So the next action item was that we develop a drought resilience web page. In here, the main objective was to provide some background and information about the Senate Bill 552 and the overall process. Another key feature of this webpage was that we had a public engagement forum where community members can go and look at the survey and provide some feedback and inputs. We also have a sign up for people who are interested in getting more of this information and meetings and stuff like that. Next. So I'm just going to go really quickly on some of the preliminary results that we've had from this engagement forum. So for example, we asked this very simple question: what is your primary use of water? And so we had a total of 13 responses from there, but I think now we have a little bit more. But overall, the primary use of water for the responses was 50% domestic wells, 30% agricultural, and then 10% for both getting water from the municipality and then from small community water suppliers. Next. Another really interesting question is that we ask which countywide or any local actions that you or your organization were aware of or were actually engaged in during the last drought. And then 90% of the respondents said that they had to haul water and get water for emergency water supply. So this was really, it's a good flag that we have that in order to inform the DRP. Then we have 70% that experienced mandatory reductions in outdoor water use, 40% had some sort of curtailments on their surface water rights, 30% were aware of the consolidation of water suppliers, and then 50% were acknowledge any type of conservation program. And then the third result, or the third question, was we asked, did you experience any of the following impacts during previous droughts? And so we've found that 40% of this respondents said that they had the water wells and they had impacts on their water quality, which is, again, also really eye-opening. And then 30% had a decline in agricultural production, and then 20% was shared between having any sort of water supply and municipal curtailments, higher water bills, and lower pumping rates. So these were some of the results for this engagement forum. And then at last, just following on what Amir showed and the timeline, we had different meetings proposed for the next years, starting in January of 2025, where we're going to look at some of the short-term and long-term actions, including some of the initial implementation of the roadmap. We're going to have a second UCC workshop in February, where we're going to showcase some of the current progress, and then we're going to touch base into the public review and commenting process. Then in March, we're going to follow with another GGSC meeting, where we're going to have some of the final implementation roadmap, the overview of the first draft of the DRP, and then we're going to look into the public commenting. And then at last, in May of 2025, we will have the summary of how we address all of the comments and the resolution of how we can upload, how the county can upload the DRP to the DWR portal. So that's it for the stakeholder engagement part. I'm going to switch it to Amir.
Just a question, going back to slide 21. And there's not many responses to this. But it certainly seems like during the last drought that there were lots of impacts to water quality, right? And for dewatered wells, that's very serious concern, right? And I think that happened a lot. It seems like that information gap that Supervisor McGordy was talking about, that do we have that overall picture of how many wells were dewatered or the water quality, more arsenic came into the water or whatever it was? Do we have that information in a more analytic kind of way?
So from this really quick survey, we don't have that information, but probably Amir could explain that, because I think he's going to explain a little bit about the risks and stuff like that. So he might have the answer to that question.
Okay.
My recollection was that we did do some surveys during our initial drought ad hoc on those issues.
Right. I remember that people were supposed to go to some state website and put in that their well had gone dry or whatever.
Right. Yeah. So I know that we did collect some data on those issues.
So the dry well reporting system that Department of Water Resources established, there's a website that domestic well owners or any well owner can go and report their well dry and the basic period of it. So I think data on that platform starts from 2014 or 15. It is a voluntary database, so it doesn't mean that so it would be basically the minimum number of wells that went dry, so whoever reported it. So that data exists and was used in the next section that I'm going to go through. The impact to water quality is a bit more of a gap in terms of the domestic well water quality. We can interpolate from the sampling that's done from different wells and water suppliers that provide some sort of a coverage and understand the patterns to water quality and how they change in drought versus the normal years. But that system is not yet in place for domestic owners, and that's something that most domestic owners don't normally do in terms of sampling their water quality. So that part is more of a data gap in terms of having that knowledge of what happened to actual shallow wells in some areas, but we do have some sense about the dewatered wells, that basically what the minimum was that happened. This is the part, and thanks Laura for going through the outreach. As I mentioned, that's a very big and important part of the whole DRP and compliance with SB 552. We are really happy and appreciative of UC Cooperative Extension and what they did. Also, the County Water Agency has been tremendously involved in this outreach process the past 2 months. Director DeShield, Deputy Director Facet, and Josie Slovit, they really helped us in terms of getting things going. And I think we had a really great start, and we're hoping to build on that in the next meetings. So very quickly, the second part of this 4-part guidebook plan for DRP development, the drought and water shortage risk assessment, is what we want to present and what we presented during that UC Cooperative Extension workshop to the public as well. So the risk assessment approach that we're having is that first, what is the hazard that we are trying to basically assess the risks of? And that's the drought. And so the frequency of drought, what that means to the County of Mendocino. The second step is what are the assets that are exposed to that hazard? So in terms of county planning would be domestic well waters and state smalls, basically the ones that have less than 5 to 14 connections and serve less than 25 people. And then the third part is combination of step 1 and step 2. What is now the vulnerability? So the DWR divides the vulnerability into physical, basically more towards the infrastructure and the water supply structure, and then social vulnerability. So these 2 components are assessed. And then the step 4 is just gathering all the information into a risk matrix so we understand what we're facing and be able to better inform our planning process. So what we did is basically use the data that we gathered. This is a very high level presentation of the results. Please reach out to us if you have questions. We can share more details on the analysis. The data is also public in the DWR website. We can share the links with you. We're hoping to get that feedback from you. But on an overall process, and again, these colors that you see here, if you see a low or is as a means to do that. But as you can see, most of this table basically shows a high medium. And these are not the only factors in the vulnerability assessment. These are the ones that based on the surveys that we got and what our previous knowledge of the impacts in the county, we tried to highlight these factors. There are multiple factors that go to the vulnerability assessment, the physical at least, for AWR data. But for the ones that we know, and as we talked, dry well susceptibility is one of them, groundwater quality is one of them, wildfires were experienced during the past 2 droughts, groundwater quality. You can see that the risk is high in the basin. And I'm going to show a map of it. But drought, as we know, is not something that's hidden from anyone in the county. It hit the county hard during the past drought and the 2013 to 15. So preparedness is very significant and important in the county. This just basically highlights the area and what factors we need to be more aware of when we are going through the next phase of planning and development.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Something that looks a little bit conflicting in the data. And yet we have susceptible. How do you those?
So fact of averaging these are large areas. The District 1 also includes most of the Ucayali Valley groundwater basin. They have more data there, so it's not really declining that effectively during the drought. But again, there are parts of, as you know, there are parts of those basins in the city of Village and those areas that have shallower groundwater wells that really get affected. So again, it goes to my point that this is kind of an high level view of things to be considered, but does not mean that things will be like factors will be excluded or not planned for. It's just how we present the data, right? So there would be some miscommunication, as you pointed out correctly, in terms of the District 1. But also it highlights the point that the only basin that we actually have a GSA that is responsible for domestic wells, actively engages with them and actively manages their water levels is in District 1 mostly. So that's why the groundwater level decline might be more of a concern in coastal areas with shallow water levels than in the Ukiah Valley groundwater basin in terms of our planning.
Well, I think it brings up a point that maybe isn't articulated clearly here, is that we, well, you know, groundwater sources, and some of them are really good and some of them are not good at all. And I happen to live on one of those not good at all places, which coincidentally my well gave out last night. So fortunately I have stored water. It doesn't make a big difference in the long term, but you know, the lack of uniformity of groundwater in our fractured rock geology is something that makes us very water insecure, just by the very nature of how Mendocino County is geologically built.
That's completely correct. And if I go to the next slide, you will see that this doesn't mean those are not really represented. And fractured rock, aquifer, shallow aquifer are actually factors in the physical vulnerability assessment. And those are considered. So to that point, if you look at this basically map of things, now that was an average of districts just to show you, the intent was to show you that there's a medium to high risk to drought for the Mendocino County overall. But this is where we're going to look at. And as you can see, there are no spaces in this county other than forest that we basically exclude, but they also have wildfire risks and all of that. There's no space in the county that we will exclude from this planning process, because wherever you look, either we have a high number of domestic wells or we have a high risk or a combination. The consideration of both would mean there's a considerable risk to plan for in terms of drought preparedness. So the yellow dots, as you can see, are the domestic wells. We have state small water system as we have them now. Again, we're in process of removing some data gaps in terms of the state small water system. They're shown in stars, and the level of risk based on this analysis shown on the map. There are very small areas that you see low. Even those areas, because they're basically surrounded by medium to high risk areas, cannot be excluded or cannot be neglected. So there is a good scattered basically data points here that shows us this planning is countywide, and we need to consider all the risks. Even as you mentioned, in terms of the Ukiah Valley groundwater basin, there are domestic wells that went dry. They're in the dry well reporting system, and that just means we need to coordinate with the Groundwater Sustainability Agency to be sure that they're cared for in the drought. And based on the GSP that was submitted, that was the plan. So as we show here, yes.
Amir, what
Yes.
does social vulnerability mean?
So it's kind of a score that, and I can go a bit more into detail of that. For the social vulnerability, just to give you some sense. So DWR separated them obviously because they point to different vulnerability towards drought, but there is this understanding throughout the public process that the department went through and kind of gathering input and feedback based on the previous droughts, that there are some populations that are more vulnerable just because of social conditions to drought than others. And that's kind of separate from the physical vulnerability, their water supply source, and other things that we just talked about on the physical side. So the factors that they included in their analysis was the household income, the percent of population that's unemployed, percent of population that don't have a higher ed in their household, having a vehicle, percent of senior citizens in that area, percent of population that live in poverty based on state guidelines and state bars, and percent of population who doesn't speak English. So those are just a few of the factors that they considered, and they basically put this in a similar way that they scored the physical vulnerability. They put this and scored it as a social vulnerability.
Okay.
And that affects the basic risk categorization.
I was thinking it was more like I share a spring with my neighbor and just how soon we get pissed off at each other.
Well, that can be a vulnerability, but that's considered in the factors. But yes,
No,
so
we
the
don't.
combination.
We
yeah.
get along well. Yeah.
The combination would represent the total risk, but as I said, for the county of Mendocino, and I think this is common knowledge. It's just this is a data reliant picture of it, and we have a high basically vulnerability to drought, and the previous drought has shown that being prepared for it actually makes a lot of difference, as everyone knows. Although it was a very harsh situation during the 2020 to 2022, as everyone knows. Things were way more streamlined than the 2013 to 15. So I'm hoping this plan would actually help make it better, even prepared for the next droughts to come.
Okay, just another time check.
I
It's
think
10
I'm
o'clock.
basically done. Yes. So
Okay.
we have these areas that we showed. Again, we named them in the slide, but the overall point is that we need coordination and collaboration. I invited the county water agency, us, and the corporate extension really made a point to invite everyone that we think we need their input, and we need feedback from the public. This is a transparent process. We need to understand the issues better. We know and we are aware that the issues are different in different parts of the county, but we need to hear it. As Supervisor McGordy said, there is a lot of data gaps, so we can't just go by data. We need the narrative and anecdotal data is also very helpful to us. So we need to hear that, and we want this process to be engaging, so the plan is effective. Please be aware that this plan is specific to the domestic well owners and the state smalls, but again, we need collaboration from everyone because of how the water supply structure is set up in the county. And it is also high level. It's going to have some implementation pathways just to structure the response, and being more prepared doesn't mean it's going to go into detail of what needs to be done, but it also can be expanded through a more detailed plan as needed in the future. So that's why I wanted to emphasize that what we worked on the past couple of months, to just make sure everyone realizes this is going on. Everyone realizes this is a transparent process. Their input is needed and welcome. And we just wanted to put out their schedule so everyone knows what's to come. And we're gonna notify and coordinate for the next meetings, but please engage in this process. We need your feedback.
I'd like to make
and thank you for your time.
Yeah. I'd like to make a comment on this, is that of course, the focus here being on small water systems and domestic wells, we also have huge vulnerability in the continued transfer of water from the Eel River into the Russian River Basin. And during drought, it may be that there is no transfers. So we'd be remiss not to include that in any kind of a drought resiliency plan. And I'm very, very concerned as we're negotiating for water rights that we continue to have water coming through from the Eel River. And, I'm pretty pessimistic the way things are going right at the moment. And I just want to be sure that any kind of a drought resiliency task force studies that and reflects on it, because it's going to be really critical for county policy going forward. It's going to take some political heavy lifting to address that issue, which we're not very organized or ready to deal with. And it's happening now. So I just want to make this group aware of how critically important it is for us to do something about that. We have the bulk of a large population here in Ukiah Valley that will probably depend on groundwater during those periods, which fortunately we're making some good progress in interties. But I'm very, very concerned for our future and for things like agriculture to continue. If we're already being forced into an artificial drought with PG&E basically reducing their bypass from normally to be 45 cubic feet per second down to 5 cubic feet per second, which is drought conditions, which means that a lot of agriculture will probably be curtailed if we don't have a really good water year. So that's something that needs to be brought up if we're going to do any significant drought resiliency planning.
All right, Amir.
So since we don't have time, so I just wanted to basically go quickly through the next steps. So our next step would be trying to set short-term and long-term mitigation strategies. Again, these are strategies. They vary in terms of level of detail that we're going to put in plan. But our proposed approach is that we're going to go through different jurisdictions throughout the county, again, entire county, determine the driving risk factors, try to establish some tracking measures, work through the data, identify the data gaps, see what we have available, talk to relative jurisdictions, look at the existing plans and data, see what is available, what's already done, and then identify in which portions of the county what's missing. And we need to plan for those missing parts in those parts of the county. Then we're going to work with the local agency, county departments, as I just mentioned, to develop some strategies that respond to those gaps and those needs. And then we define those strategies in the plan in a way that's implementable for the county and other departments, understanding the limitations that the county has, the departments have, and other local agencies have in terms of implementation. So we need to be sensitive to that. And then that goes into identifying responsible parties, also the funding mechanism, which is very important in the county, and how that's going to be done. The education and outreach part, again, this plan is towards the public. Education and outreach is always a big part of it, as Laura mentioned. And then identify the actions within the county's toolbox, what county can do actually, working with the partners to respond to those needs that we identify. So this is basically our approach to the next step. As I sent emails before this meeting, I'm going to reach out to public water systems. Please do reach out to us if you have input, if you want to discuss. And then we're going to present our preliminary results for this in our January meeting that is scheduled right now.
All right. Well, thank you for that. We'll go to public comment. Okay. Is there any public comment online?
Seeing none online.
All right, we'll go back to the board then. Any further comments, Supervisor?
Yeah, it's wonderful that we're doing this. It's wonderful that we have the planning grant. I like working with Amir. I know he's good. I like working with our Mendocino County Water Agency, as small as it is, but also UC Cooperative Extension. We have really good people in place. I think what we really need is to have some good direction. And like I said, if we don't address surface water in the Ukiah Valley, Potter Valley, Redwood Valley, Popland, we're missing something. So as we put this plan together, we really have to take that into account, because as I said, there's a good chance that with the new arrangements that are being negotiated now, that we may get no Eel River water, which will then have only the water in Lake Mendocino available to us, which we know from the last drought we just about ran out of, and that was even getting a little trickle from the Eel River. It may not be available the next time. So as we work on this plan, we'd be remiss if we don't include contingencies for what we do. That's going to require probably really strict water rationing for some of the communities that are dependent on surface water. The city of Ukiah is in better shape because they've done a really good job of groundwater development. There seems to be adequate groundwater for most domestic use, certainly, along with some agricultural use. But we want to see really close coordination between the Russian River Flood Control, the Mendocino Inland Water Power Commission, the newly developed Eel River Project Authority, and I think I got everybody there. So we want to be sure that as we discuss this and come up with a plan, we don't overlook the importance of surface water, because that, volume-wise, is the largest amount of water Mendocino County has in its portfolio.
Right. And I'd just like to thank Amir and your team, our county staff, Howard DeShiel and Amber Fassett, and everyone else who's worked on this, and UC Cooperative Extension for all your collaboration. And so it certainly seems like we're on the right track for getting this SB 552, the Drought Resiliency Plan, done. And I want to appreciate Supervisor McGordy. We worked on the ad hoc together for a couple of years, I think, before it got transitioned. And now we're working on this, and, I just appreciate your expertise on these water issues.
Thank you. That was one of the great roadkills of the Brown Act, is that we couldn't continue our water ad hoc and couldn't find a way to successfully transfer our efforts. It looks like this is taken over.
Yeah. And I just wanted to, certainly, I think we're both willing to participate and excited to participate in any way we can till the end of the year. But coming January, we'll probably have Supervisor McGordy won't be here, and I won't, because I'll be the chair, the board, I won't be on this standing committee, so we're going to have two different participants on this committee. I'm sure you'll be in good hands with them, but it's been a pleasure working with you, Supervisor.
Thank you.
And so with that, any further comments?
I just wanted to thank, it's been a pleasure working with the county, as Supervisor McGordy mentioned. I will continue to do so. And just one comment on the Russian River. I know we need to have a section about surface water curtailment as a risk, because that just happens to be the case for the Russian River. I think we can expand that to include the PG&E situation. Director McGordy, we have Ms. Salomon from Flood Control District, Director White from the City of Ukiah and the GSA administration, and hopefully you. So we have a good representation of that project. So I'll work with all of these members to be sure that we capture PG&E under that section as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have a motion to accept the presentation?
I make such a motion.
All right, I'll second it.
Supervisor McGordy?
Yes.
Supervisor Hatchak?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, very good. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we are going to go to item 2C, do that first, then 2B. Okay, and so we will take a break until 10:20. All right.
Porque pues es buena persona la señora y los ha atendido muy bien.
Pensé que nada más iba a ser un programa de orientación quizás para los nuevos padres, pero creo que nos llevamos una linda sorpresa porque Gaby es una persona muy cercana a nosotros, es como parte de nuestra familia, siempre ha estado dispuesta a ayudarnos y a escucharnos con nuestras dudas sobre la paternidad, y en nuestro caso, que estamos solos en este país, ha sido como de mucha ayuda.
Es un gran apoyo para nuevos padres, y más aún si están en nuestra situación, que somos extranjeros, que nuestra familia y amigos, como dice Carla, están en otro país, lejos. Entonces sí, viene muy bien el programa para apoyarse tanto emocional y como anímicamente, y bueno, en varios aspectos del programa que nos ayuda a seguir adelante con esta nueva aventura.
Te ayuda como a ver los distintos recursos que tiene la comunidad para nuevos papás, entonces creo que es de gran ayuda.
No queda mucho que agregar, pero lo veo de la misma forma.
Que hemos aprendido algunas cosas aquí y pues los han ayudado, como este programa los ha ayudado para seguir creciendo a la bebé, como con buenos consejos y así.
Sí, y creo que también ha sido muy importante el tema de apoyarnos con el libro y saber qué actividades hacer con Máximo de acuerdo a su edad, cómo estimularlo, cómo cuidarlo de los peligros de la casa, como cosas que uno como papá nuevo no conoce, claro.
Pues a mí me gustaría que lo siguiéramos visitando aquí en la biblioteca de Covelo. Está tranquilo y muy bonito aquí.
Cuando no nos podemos reunir, nos comunicamos por Zoom o una llamada telefónica o por texto.
Donde nos visite, porque ha sido nuestra casa. A veces nosotros vamos a Willits y puede ser en el parque. Gaby llega, como hacemos un resumen de cómo ha ido nuestra semana o qué hemos hecho de nuevo, cómo va el trabajo. Luego hacemos las actividades del libro. Vemos si podemos hacer un juguetito nuevo para Máximo. A veces ella lo evalúa, cómo está su sentido motriz, qué ha aprendido de nuevo, nuevas palabras, y jugamos un ratito y conversamos.
A mí personalmente también me ayudó mucho a obtener mi licencia a conducir, que era un objetivo que teníamos en cuanto a la familia,
sí.
para poder estar tranquilos, así que encuentro que ha sido fundamental el apoyo.
El objetivo del programa es que las familias estén bien, y que las familias estén bien significa niños felices, niños sanos, y eso en un futuro es adultos sanos y un mundo mejor. Entonces está bueno.
She has made me feel like I'm important and I can go at my own pace, and that's all you need sometimes when you're feeling like you got nobody.
It was helpful to have somebody there kind of holding my hand and guiding me and letting me know this is kind of the normal. It felt like I was becoming a new mom, so it was very interesting and helpful, very, very helpful.
You know, there was that self-conscious part of me, like, will I be accepted even though I'm not perfect?
What I like the most is that she really listens.
The support that she gives me is special because she does it with love, and it's just natural, you know? That's all I could say. It just feels like somebody that I've known since I was little.
You know, I said to Jeanette, Jeanette, you're supposed to be with me for 5 years. Jeanette said, yeah, I know, I'm going to be with you guys for 5 years. That's when I said, well, I guess I can trust her. She's going to be with us for 5 years.
Yo creo que quizás pasó como a la segunda visita o algo así, como que ya nos presentamos formalmente. Y luego ya creo que en la segunda visita estaba como todo más tranquilo, como muy, como que el ambiente era muy familiar. Entonces yo me sentí muy cómoda.
Felt like she cared for Sparrow too, and Sparrow really enjoyed it. Yeah, she knew when Gabby came we were going to be making something or learning something, and she'd instantly start digging through Gabby's bags to find out what activity we were going to do.
Not only did we get the assistance with this program, but we also made a really good friend. I'm happy to call Gabby our friend.
I think the relationship that we've built has been just, she's a part of the family.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Visit MendoReady.org. It's our one-stop shop for emergency information. You can sign up for emergency alerts, find your pre-established evacuation zone on our current emergencies map, and find hazard and preparedness information.
Imagine you're faced with a disaster such as a wildfire, and you're ordered to evacuate. I'll bet you wish you had more time in that moment. Now's your chance to buy yourself that time. Sign up for Nixle.
We're on item 2C, which is discussion and possible action, including providing recommendations to staff and a referral to the Board of Supervisors recommending approval of the County of Mendocino Cannabis Department monthly update for June, July, and August 2024. So it's been quite a while since we've met, and so I'm sure there's a lot of updates. So I'm going to look to staff. Sarah McBurney.
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Sarah McBurney with the Mendocino Cannabis Department. At the close of August, MCD had a total of 663 total cannabis cultivation business licenses, or CCBLs, in program, with only 99 applications left for initial review. The total processed in July was 31, while the total processed in August was 32. The department also processed 2 modifications and 6 reassignments within the months of July and August. For 2024, MCD has had a total of 274 CCBLs and had a total of 166 CCBL applications denied or withdrawn. To date, the department has issued 25 CCBLs with annual state licenses, 443 CCBLs with provisional state licenses, and 96 without an active DCC license. As a reminder to all CCBL holders and applicants, commercial cannabis cultivation cannot occur without a valid county and state DCC license. That means that all Phase 1 and Phase 2 applicants without an active DCC license and all Phase 3 applicants with their annual license application but no annual license cannot cultivate until they receive their annual license from the DCC. We did include in our monthly report the approximate tables for square footage of both the issued and under review square footage of cannabis cultivation that could occur if everyone cultivated the maximum square footage that they were issued for. Please note it's a approximation by license, and the actuals may vary due to not having a state license and not being able to cultivate, site plan limitations, fallowing, and so on. But the approximate number of issued square footage for Mendocino County at the close of July or August was 6,040,000, and the approximate total of square footage under review for cultivation was 1,300,000. The 4-leaf contract planning team has 36 CCBL applications currently assigned to them and has been reduced to 6 FTE, while MCD has 92 CCBL applications assigned to them. July inspections, we did a total of 29, and during the month of August, we only did a total of 9. And the reason why there was such a big difference between the 2 months is there was due to staffing resources, but we are current with our site inspections. And when we are looking at site inspection and deciding whether to do on-site versus virtual, all site inspections are compared to our policy prior to staff deciding whether we'll do boots on the ground or virtual. And that policy can be found on our website as well. So if anyone's inquiring whether they will be eligible for a virtual or physical site inspection, that decision is in that policy. Currently, the department has a couple of backlog log jams that we're working through. We are happy to report we're reporting on track to issue all previously backlogged CCBL licenses by the DCC deadline of December 31st, 2024. Beginning January 1st, 2025, the DCC will be unable to renew any provisional licenses. There are a small handful of applications that will require a biosurvey during the perennial blooming season, and the department is actively working with both the DCC and CDFW to ensure these applications are able to remain in the regulated market and in program. The 99 remaining initial applications are all in various stages of review, and the department would like to remind applicants to ensure they're keeping an eye on their email for any application deficiencies that may be sent by our planner team. The deficiency requests may include requests for documents, any fees that may be due, or signature requests. Administrative permits may be required from planning and building due to zoning or setback reduction discovered during the department's review of the CCBL application. And the AP is a discretionary permit with conditions of approval, and the process could take 6 to 8 months to complete. It's the license holder's responsibility to ensure all conditions are met within the prescribed timeline. And it's important now as we get towards the end of this deadline that applicants that are currently working through the AP process are really responsive to any requests made to get through that review time. And then the department is currently working with CDFW to prioritize sites that are deemed not less than significant. Due to the county M&D in Chapter 10A17, the department must consult with CDFW on these sites prior to issuing the CCBL. So we do have a few of those in addition to the folks that are waiting on the bio surveys. But again, we are working with both the DCC and CDFW to get these cultivators to the next steps and towards their annual license. For the EIR, it is currently it's in the final stages, and in conversation with the DCC, they expect the EIR to be certified sometime in October, so during next month. The DCC has confirmed that once the EIR is certified, there will be a group of provisional licenses able to transition within the first 30 days after certification. And then the DCC is working with CDFW on the possibility of annual licenses being able to have conditions of approval set forth by CDFW to ensure that those folks can get their annual license as well. Applicants with specific EIR process questions or site-specific questions should still please reach out to licensing@cannabis.ca.gov, and that will connect them directly with the DCC, who's the lead agency. Lastly, we just want to touch on our grant updates. So we currently have our local equity entrepreneurial program, LEAP. The department held a LEAP fee relief window from May 13th to June 13th. From that fee relief window, the department processed $514,000 of fee relief applications. From round 5 funding, the department still has a remainder of the $931,000 that can be utilized for LEAP direct grants. This means the department will be able to process about 18.6 direct grants at $50,000 each. The LEAP direct grant queue has a total of 276 individuals awaiting initial direct grants. The department anticipates processing the $931,000 of direct grants beginning January of 2025. Cannabis Business Services is our procured vendor for direct technical assistance, and they have started. They began the process of direct technical assistance for all equity verified applicants in July. And so far, they've held several webinars with topics that include weekly Q&A, annual license overview, metric training, and a soon anticipated CEQA overview. CBS, or Cannabis Business Services, can also assist equity applicants one-on-one with questions regarding CEQA, licensing, grants, financing, vetting vendors, marketing, etc. Overall, we've received positive feedback from equity applicants regarding CBS, and the last live workshop webinar had 9 registrants, and the one before that had 17. Although the live webinars are not well attended, recorded materials are posted on Cannabis Business Services Vimeo platform and have an overall 33% view rate out of our total equity applicants. Additionally, CBS is still actively seeking feedback from equity applicants to find the most agreeable time to attend live webinars. And folks can reach out at Mendocino at cannabisbusinessservices.com to provide any feedback they may have. And then CBS also uses MailChimp for different email campaigns. And through those campaigns, there's a 54% open rate on those emails. So about 54% of our equity applicants are reading those emails, and about 33% are attending the webinars that are recorded. Lastly, for LEAP, the department has begun work with our procured vendor, MGT Consulting, to provide an update to the county equity assessment. The department anticipates this project will take place September of 2024 through May of 2025. And then moving on to LJAGP, which is our Local Jurisdiction Assistance Grant Program. As of August 29th, 2024, the California State Auditor has closed the previous 2023-048 LJAGP Direct Grant Audit, and the final report was made available to the public. Mendocino County did not have any recommendations from this report. The department has received notice of the next routine direct grant audit, which is named 2024-048, on July 30th of 2024, and this audit is currently ongoing. The Cannabis Department was able to increase the total direct grant amount available to equity or to provisional license holders by $283,000 with the recently approved amendment we submitted called A2. With the close of fiscal year 23-24, the department is working with the DCC on a third amendment to true up all budgetary line items. And the total new direct grant funding that will be available and is available is $5 million, $90,621. As of the close of August, the total amount of direct grants received to date, so direct grant applications, the department had received 261 applications. The total amount of direct grant applicants that remained in queue, either through removing duplicates or folks that had applied and were deemed not able to receive a grant because they didn't have a provisional license or annual, was 243 applications. So our direct grant queue, it truly consisted of 243 folks for LJAG. The total funding remaining to date is $491,000, which means the applicant or the department's still looking for about 20 more applications to come in. Currently, we've processed 112 applications and 98 checks have been approved for AP patches. There is a total of 158 applications routing through Cobblestone. The department shows about 200 LJAGP provisional license holders who have yet to apply for the grant and is currently conducting individual outreach, encouraging these applicants to apply so all funding can be encumbered. And then it appears around $700,000 of the previously allocated EIR funds may be available to repurpose. The department plans to work with the DCC on a fourth amendment request to reallocate these funds. And through that reallocation, the department would like to propose an increase to available direct grant funding, including the Excella renewal fee into our budget and additional CEQA training for department staff. The department received notification that LJAGP funds must be expended by March 31st, 2025. And then due to the extreme time constraint, MCD will be also looking to have our procured vendor CBS assist with any new LJAGP direct grant processing. So if we do get that $700K reallocated where we would like to, we will be able to take even more direct grants in. And so the thought is we'll bring on Cannabis Services to assist routing those direct or getting those direct route contracts available to route. And then with that, that's all I have for our monthly update.
Well, that's certainly a lot, and thank you for that information, and thank you for providing it in a very clear, concise way that I think we can all understand and see what's going on. First of all, I'd like to thank you for trying to maximize the direct grants. You know, the $283,000 that got transferred over, and just your efforts in making that more accessible to people. That's important work. And the audit report, that sounds very good. With the Cannabis Services, you know, the technical assistance, which was missing for a long time, I really appreciate you getting that up and running and making it accessible to people. I hope that more people take advantage of it, because I do think what they're providing could be very useful to the cultivators and the community. So that's it for right now. Okay. Supervisor McGordy.
So I have a couple questions or comments. So one of the first things that I hope we can do this year is include this in our ag report as a section on cannabis. And what I noted just real quickly on this is that there's approximately 160 acres of cannabis when you add it all up in the county. And it would be good if we could also report the tax income from the crop. If we could at least have that in our crop report, it would at least help give some size of the cannabis industry in Mendocino County so that people know, along with a number of CCBLs. The other question, I probably should know this, but I'm not remembering it. So as we went through the process of going back to one 10,000 square foot CCBL per parcel, there were some people who were in the process of trying to get two CCBLs. What's happened to them? What's the status of them?
If I may.
Oh, go ahead.
Through the chair, thank you. It is a great question, what is happening with them. Currently, there was an item brought before the board in early September in discussion regarding this policy. And I believe that staff is currently working on revising the original or the language of the current ordinance to align with the original intent of the ordinance. Per BOS direction. However, staff did not receive clear direction on what to do with the outstanding applications in queue. Currently, they're on ice from our department, so we are currently not moving those forward. We're not really doing anything with them. I think that there has been a lot of passion from the folks that did apply for that second CCBL and a lot of questions as to what potentially will happen with that. And I know that when staff intends to bring that back to the Board of Supervisors for the ordinance language discussion, that was one of the talking points that we intended to bring forth as well.
How many applicants are there?
If I may through the chair, it shook out to be about 10 applications in total, and they're all in various stages of review. So some of them are simply just applications, and some of them did have planner review time associated with them as well.
And in order to put their application together, I assume that they had to spend money to be compliant, and so there's expenditures that they made, right?
Yeah, if I may through the chair, definitely. I think that, it's important to note with these CCBL holders, they paid not only county fees, which, is about $2,800. I could pull up our fee schedule for the current initial application fee, but, a couple $1,000s for Mendocino County Cannabis Department to get up and running and get that application going. And it's important to note that the direction with this, some of these applicants who are doing the right thing and trying to move forward in the regulated market went ahead and applied at the DCC and paid for their DCC license as well, which I believe is about $10,000. And I could be wrong on that, but I believe it is. And, so even if at the county level, if we make a determination to refund, folks are going to be out of money on this from an application standpoint.
Yeah, I kind of see this as a problem. Again, from a fairness perspective of being told that you can do this and then say, oh, never mind, and sorry, you're out $10,000. That doesn't seem right.
Yeah, and I think that what I've heard too from cultivators, because I think several of them that were in this process of getting their second license were in the 3rd district, Willits, Covelo areas, and that some of them actually, beyond the permitting, they started to do their infrastructure changes. So there's that complication too. If you remember that the motion that we approved was to have staff come back with the options about what to do with those people who were in process.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're waiting on, is those options, right?
Yeah, well, it seems like if someone is working on good faith with the condition at the time, that needs to be honored, my own opinion. And if it's changed after the fact, after they've started the process and gone through it, then it seems like you need to move forward with the people who, in good faith, did their applications and due diligence and no more, but at least honor the people who were doing the proper legal process at the time. That's just my opinion.
And like what Ms. McBurney said, that the other part of the direction was to stop processing new ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, if I may. So the department has ceased any new application intake. And like I said, the applications that are currently outstanding are on hold until we come back to the board for that discussion. And staff is prepared to speak to different alternatives that could occur with these applications as well.
Any comments from staff on this?
Steve Dundercliff, Deputy CEO and Interim Cannabis Director, and really just speaking up in support of what you're hearing from our Senior Program Manager. Based on the discussion with the board, it is our understanding that the board would like to consider the options, and certainly the perspective that you're expressing, Supervisor, is going to be very relevant for that discussion with the full board as far as what do we do with these applications that have been received.
Okay, thank you. Other than that, great report. It's really nice to know what's going on in the cannabis division and some level of accuracy. As you were going through and discussing, some of the numbers didn't match up in this report. Is it because what you're giving is updated, or?
If I may, possibly, if depending upon the numbers, the monthly report is a month behind. So I think towards the end of the report, when I started talking about LJAGP funding, I kind of switched to current and future opportunities. So that may be why. But if it was application specific, I'm happy to revisit those if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
And just another comment on page 4, where it says total number of APs on hold due to tree removal, 0. So that Supervisor McGordy and I worked on that for a long time. To see a 0 there is a thing of beauty, right? So thank you very much for working through all those issues. Let's see. So are you done with this report? Okay. So going to the Gantt chart, and just looks like we're down to the final applications, right? So I don't know what the latest is, but we've been looking at kind of shooting for October, November for getting them all done. Are we still on that timeline?
So if you'll notice, the Gantt chart this month did slide quite a bit, and actually what you'll see is it shows all the way through December. I think as is, the department is comfortable that the majority of our CCBL backlogged applications will be complete by October, November. And really where the kind of continuous workload through December continued on is there are going to be applications that are held up in some of the log jams that we spoke to earlier. So such as folks who are finishing out the AP process, folks that, as we work through the bio survey logjam with CDFW and DCC and come to final conclusions on how to move those folks through the program, I felt it was appropriate to really showcase that and extend out that timeline. But I think that the applications that we'll be looking at towards the end of this year are kind of the obscure one-off, this is a really special circumstance application that we're going to get to the finish line. So that's where the decision to slide that out was. But yes, I think that the majority of the backlog will be completed. Even this month, we are already close. I think we're above 25 completed for the month. And I know that the team currently is working hard at getting through to applicants and coming to some finalized decisions with them as well. There are a lot of applications left in our initial application queue that are waiting for something on behalf of the applicant. So I really want to just stress that if you are an applicant and you do not have an issued CCBL with Mendocino Cannabis Department, if you've not heard from us, that's wrong. Please contact us. We've been trying to reach out to these applicants. Every application at this point has had some sort of review. It's had some sort of pickup, check out, try to engage with the applicant. And so we may not have updated contact information. We're trying any numbers that we can to contact these applicants. And a lot of them are responsive as well, but ultimately, if you're responding and you get a notification from the department saying that, we need a signature on a compliance plan, and that signature doesn't come through, at some point, these applications are going to have to come to a head. And if there's a refusal to sign, to pay a fee, anything like that, the department will have to move forward through the denial process on your application. And that's not something we want to do. For applicants that are hesitant about, information they're receiving from the department or not sure, like maybe something on a compliance plan is confusing or there's questions, please contact the department and we are happy to walk through those. With the most recent March 2024 ordinance amendment, there is an ability to extend compliance plans beyond 1 year as long as the applicant is showing good faith. So I do want to bring that up as well. So previously you were tied to that 12 months to get everything done on your compliance plan. Now we're just asking that you make that good faith effort. So really encouraging applicants that have something pending on them to please, work with the department to get that resolved, because ultimately we are going to have to come to a head with these and we are going to have to make a decision and either deny them or move them on in the program. So
Okay. Yeah, and I just wanted to say that with the communication, that before last year, I used to get emails all the time saying, I haven't heard from the department in 5 years or whatever. And in the last year, I haven't heard anything like that. So really good job for you and your team of really making people aware of what's going on, making sure that that communication is happening.
I agree with that observation. The other indication is how many people show up to for public expression or otherwise at our board meetings concerning cannabis. It's been pretty quiet lately, which means that I think we've untangled a lot of the problems that existed in the cannabis division, and I thank both of you for working so hard to make it work.
Well, we like boring meetings, but yeah. So
that are short.
All right. So with that, I want to commend the staff too for, at the end of the state legislative session last August, that there was a lot of issues coming up, and I think that the staff, for the executive office and also for MCD were very responsive in dealing with some of those issues that were coming up, and how we had to respond quickly to what was going on in Sacramento. And so really kudos to everyone who was working on that, because it was fast and furious at the end. And I think we represented Mendocino County very well.
So I'll move the recommended action to accept the report and move it on to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, I'll second that, but I wanted to make one further comment.
Okay.
And with that, part of the GGC is to deal with the legislative platform. And so we're going to do a new expedited form or process this year where we are going to try to get a formal legislative platform adopted by the board in December, so it's more relevant to the legislature as they develop their policy, their bills that they're going to submit. And so we are going to look at that in October, start the initial draft review in the GGC. So if there's anyone that has any ideas what should be in the legislative platform, especially in regards to cannabis, that please send them our way. Send them to me if you have any ideas. Something that needs to be included or deleted, whatever changes that need to happen to that legislative platform. Okay.
I have a long-standing one, which is that there should be a mechanism for small growers to sell directly to customers. I don't know where that stands, if it's ever been moved forward, but I believe, based on my experiences in the wine industry, you cannot compete in a wholesale world as a small grower. And if Mendocino is going to have any future in cannabis, given the way things are changing so rapidly, there needs to be provisions for direct sales.
Yeah, that is part of our platform. So, all right.
Supervisor, or Chair.
We better go to public comment. Any public comment?
My name is Joshua Keats. I'm a cultivator from Mendocino County. Thank you, supervisors, for having us here. I felt compelled to come speak today after what was an unfortunate cannabis meeting regarding nursery to outdoor license conversion some weeks ago. Much of the dialogue presented by both supervisors and a sect of public comment was not factual. What needs to be said, I have come to say, our cannabis program is failing. We have lost over 50% of our licensees and will continue to atrophy operators because, quite simply, the gross margin produced by a 10,000 square foot farm is not viable to support a business in today's cannabis economy. We have 100-acre farms in the next county over in numerous Southern California municipalities competing with our producers here. We are stagnating by focusing on the past and have let what was once $1 billion industry here in Mendocino County die a slow death. It is no hyperbole to state that our economy has been hijacked by a small group of politically overactive neo-prohibitionists disguised as environmentalists. What reasonable cannabis production in this county means is not unregulated backyard grows in neighborhoods, in resource lands, uninhibited development, or bad actors harassing communities. These are things of the past that came from unregulated cannabis. What reasonable cannabis production in this county does mean is allowing farmers to produce an agricultural product on agriculturally appropriate land under the stringent regulations of the state of California. The notion that there is some degradation to the environment from cultivation under the current state's regulations is not consummate with reality. I would argue that implementing cannabis cultivation on a parcel improves it. We are required, before planting a single plant, to identify all waterways, stream crossings, wetlands, replace all culverts that are failing or undersized, and avoid any environmentally sensitive areas. What reasonable cannabis production in this county means is allowing for cultivation canopy limits that produce enough revenue to allow for operators to not go out of business and thereby benefit the community by creating jobs, supporting local vendors, and paying taxes. It's that simple. Mendocino County needs a cannabis program that will be successful in today's economic climate. We are real businesses that support this county. I employ 50 people in this county with full-time employment. My employees are paid a fair and living wage, are given health care benefits, a safe and reliable place to come to work. We produce a product that identifies Mendocino County as its place of origin and promotes not just our business, but the county as a whole. We still have an opportunity to support the remaining operators here. We are today here to request that we reopen this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Hi, my name's Jen Gray, and I consider myself an environmentalist. I grew up in Mendocino County on Greenfield Ranch, and my parents taught me the importance of protecting the natural world, and this is a value that I carry with me throughout my life. That being said, I fail to see how allowing cultivators to expand from 1/4 of an acre to a 1/2 acre per parcel will damage our local environment. I honestly don't think that it is enough, and we should be allowed to grow 1 acre per parcel. There are regulations in place for cannabis cultivators specifically that protect the environment. First of all, we are not allowed to cut down any type of tree in order to grow cannabis. Cannabis licensees have to report annually to the Water Board, and there are substantial setback requirements from streams and waterways, which other agricultural crops do not currently have. It is also a requirement to have our property reviewed by Fish and Wildlife to ensure that we do not negatively impact the environment. Cannabis is tested for 66 different pesticides before it can enter the legal marketplace. I do not know of any other agricultural crop that has to be tested before it enters the market. In fact, there actually have been random tests done on produce, conventional and organic, and both have come back with pesticide contamination. I could decide to start a cut flower farm on my property without a cap of how many acres I can grow. I wouldn't need a permit or to pay permit fees or even get all of my buildings permitted to do so. And I could cut down trees if I needed more sunny area. I could spray pesticides on my crops and send them to market without these crops being tested. It seems to me that legal cannabis farms are the most environmentally friendly agriculture around. So again, I fail to see how this is an environmental issue. I am also concerned about the well-being of our community. We have all watched our local economy suffer over the last 5 years. If our county does not allow cannabis cultivators to expand, we will continue to watch local businesses of all types shut down. I already know cultivators that have left this county because it doesn't make sense for them to grow on such a small square footage, with prices of cannabis continuing to drop and the cost of production continuing to rise. This means that their tax money is no longer going to Mendocino County. They are no longer shopping here or eating at restaurants or going to community events because this community has pushed them out. Mendocino County allows the smallest amount of square footage in the state. Right next door in Lake County, they're allowed to grow 1 acre of cannabis for every 20 acres of land. Glass House is a large cannabis company located in San Bernardino County, and one of their areas has 125 acres of greenhouses, which I was under the understanding is more than all of Mendocino County's cultivators combined. We are simply asking for 1 acre of cultivation per parcel so that we can at least try to make it in this market. My partner and I are both born and raised in Ukiah, the Ukiah area, and we have children that we would like to continue to raise here, but it's getting harder and harder for our business to survive.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hello, my name is David Kursfeld, and I want to thank you guys for seeing us today. I didn't write anything, but I am a member of our community. My parents are members of our community. My sister is a local teacher. My grandmother is from the coast. My cousins are from North County. And I myself have a cultivation license, and my family is in agriculture in the Central Valley, in Willows, Durham, Chico, and Orville. And the reason why ag zoning was created as Ag 40 was because as a local farmer, you couldn't succeed with less than 40 acres. And so in our community, myself, I employed previous 30 people. Now I employ 1 person because of our cannabis laws. I bought a vineyard for expansion. I rented buildings. I started because farming is on a timeline. You have to move quickly. So if you guys are going to permit us, we have to prepare. I prepared for our expansion. I lost a lot of money in that process, and we are just an agricultural family. And so I beg you guys, not for me and not for our cannabis community, but for our local community of all businesses, of my friends that have construction companies, my friends that own restaurants. Everybody's receipts are down 40%. And this isn't from anything else. And like they said, I am an environmentalist. My parents are local environmentalists. And we can grow anything else and spray and cut and chop. And so we are regulating in our county the most regulated environmental product in the United States. We are regulated even further. The state of California is the most regulated state in the union. And we are choking our local businesses that are necessary. My kids go to school here. My wife works at Space and is a local physical therapist. And I care about our community more. I don't care necessarily about cannabis. I care about our people. I beg you guys to talk to people of the age that are raising children in our community and talk to them about their opinions, not retirement age people, because they have their opinions. We have a 40-year war on cannabis, and people are stuck in a mentality that we have to fight against these hoodlums and gangsters, when it's not the case. We live in a climate that is conducive, and if we pass up the opportunity to cultivate our local growers, we are passing up the opportunity for our restaurants and our car lots. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one question.
Yeah.
You said that you had created this infrastructure to expand. Was that because you're the 2 permits per parcel, or was it for
this was for the 10% expansion?
Okay.
And it was a lot of infrastructure that I had to prepare for. You know, we should have spoke up sooner. You know, all of us should have came together sooner. And if we're going to create a plan that snips cannabis, we have to have an economic plan for recovery for our community. This isn't, we have to be non-biased on this. Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor.
I just want to make a couple quick comments because I'm a farmer, and when I ran for supervisor, I was very clear that what we needed to do with the cannabis industry was to get it in the right place where you can grow it. I was a big supporter of outdoor grows because, you know, it's pastorally attractive and it makes sense. It's a minimal impact on the environment. And I supported expansion because I'm a farmer. I mean, I know you cannot make a living on 1 acre of grapes, right? And if you are going to attempt, you better at least be able to have customers who are willing to pay you fairly and buy everything sort of in advance. So I agree that I don't see a future for the cannabis industry in Mendocino County when it's so constricted. It's a real problem. And saying that also as University of California farm advisor who advised a lot of small farmers about how do you make a farming enterprise work. And it's very, very difficult to do it when you're so highly constricted. Everything you said about pesticide use is absolutely correct. It is the most regulated crop in California. I wish there was a way that you could leverage that, because there's certainly people who are using cannabis for health, and if they're buying from someone who's a licensed producer, they're obviously getting the healthiest cannabis you can possibly get, as opposed to somebody who's legally growing it with pesticides from China or Mexico, which exists. That's not, hyperbole. So I've tried to stick up for you. I got beat down really seriously, even by my own constituents. Every time this issue comes up, I get beat down by my own constituents because they don't really see a difference between our legal markets and all the bad guys that are out there that just refuse to, come in from the cold and be part of a legal system. And you're absolutely right. It's having a tremendous impact on the economy of our county, and you can see it in places like Laytonville where businesses are failing and people are moving out. And it's a very sad story. It's not the outcome that I hoped for this industry when I first ran for supervisor. And, I'm in your camp, but the political realities, when we did try to do expansion, there was huge pushback. And you can't forget that either, because we have a lot of neighbors that really don't support the idea of cannabis growing because they have a different view of what cannabis cultivation is than you. So I'm very sorry for the situation we're in. I tried to support you as best I could, but I lost. Politically, I lost. And, as I end my term and I'm looking in the rearview mirror at what's transpired over almost 4 years, I'm pessimistic in terms of the future for a viable cannabis industry in Mendocino County for all the reasons you listed. So I'm sorry.
Okay, any other public comment?
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Ian Powell. And thank you, Sarah, for your report as well. I couldn't agree more with the others that are in the room. I currently have a brand and employ, we're under 10 right now, but that's, I think, due to holding, the license size as we're all talking about here. So expansion is what we would like to go back to. I think 4F is what was a couple weeks back that we got shot down in a 6-0 vote. I understand that you guys are under a lot of pressure, and it's been tough, but it's economies of scale, as we know, and as the price per pound continues to fall and the price to operate continues to go up. I have a brand that's on a shelf in, I don't know, maybe 50 stores across California, right? And we've topped out. We can't go any higher because we can't cultivate anymore. It's kind of relevant to the same thing as like having a new restaurant open up, and they can be open, say an 8-hour period, but Mendocino County, we're only going to let you open up for 2 hours a day and see how you survive. And it's that same, that 10% of whatever, if we could go to that acre place, I think that our business could be a lot more viable. I think we could compete with other areas because of our terroir, because of the Appalachia that we're in, because the uniqueness, because of the legacy, because what we've stood for on so many others that have come in and cultivated before us. The legal market isn't the problem. The legal market is a place where it's heavily regulated, as we all well know. And I think if we look just at where we're at legally and take our focus and maybe put that elsewhere, we understand that it's taken a long time to get where we're at, and I believe that if cannabis is going to survive in Mendocino County, we can't be held to 10,000 square feet anymore. We have to have that conversation. It has to go back we have to open that up, and at least if we can't come to it within our county, we have to try to maybe even adopt then state regulations and get to that acre. Otherwise, I just feel like all that work that you guys have done to downtown, all those pretty lights that we put up, all those expanding the streets and new parking and all that, it's all for nothing. It's all for nothing. We're seeing stores shut down left and right. And until we can kind of wrap our heads around that, I mean, we see the grape prices going down, correct, per ton. When you go an acre of grapes versus an acre of cannabis, what's dollar amount, dollar for dollar? We can go water usage. So the environmental portion of it and throwing that completely out the window, because it's not environmentally. We are the most environmentally conscious group. As said prior, 66 different pesticides that we're tested for and constant oversight. So I beg you guys to look at 4F again, reconsider that and look at expansion for those of us that are doing it properly. Thank you for your time. That's all I got.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, any public comment online?
Hi, my name is Joey Nickel, and I'm a cultivator in Mendocino County. A long time ago, I shook hands with the sheriff, and I got one of the first licenses. And you know, the next thing I know, I'm getting calls from distributors off the state website and selling a lot of product and putting it into my business and growing. And the way things have gone, the price has gone down. You know, the cost to produce has gone up, and we're held to this 10,000 square foot limitation. In reality, it's 100 by 100 foot area that we're allowed to cultivate. We're allowed to go to 20,000 square foot. We're talking 140 by 140 foot area. And, you know, once you're out there pulling tarps, turning valves, irrigating, really, you know, anything you make beyond what you would have is profit, you know, aside from your cost to process. I'm not a big fan of drinking wine. I drive down the road and I see these vineyards. I think they're beautiful. I like the idea that we produce something unique in our county, and a lot of these wineries have built great venues. They're doing market gardens on the side, wine tasting. They become destinations for people all over the world, really. People want to come and taste wine. I really think that cannabis pairs well with wine, and I've worked with multiple vineyard owners in the past cultivating, and they just couldn't be happier to have me paying rent. You know, their grapes aren't making them any money. It helps them stay in business, and I think we can feed off of each other, you know. And it's tough out there. I've spent a lot of money on building permit fees, environmental stuff like my CEQA, which I'm still hoping to get some grant money back. I've paid a lot of contractors to do upgrades to my business. My land has been reassessed just for having a license. I'm paying more property tax. You know, and it's a trickle-down effect. You know, everybody's going to benefit from this. People who are contractors who do work for farms, people who come here for tourism and like wine and dine and, you know, a little bit of cannabis. The way I see it, you know, we're kind of in business together. So let's embrace each other.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Good morning, Corinne Powell. I'm also a cultivator. I may be seen as the other side of the coin from the other speakers this morning. However, if you remember from the very beginning, and I know you two weren't here in the very beginning, but I have always been an advocate for a dual pathway in Mendocino County of those who have property that is more conducive to a larger cannabis operation than those of us who bought property, developed it in the era of you can't see a plant, that's illegal, you have to bury fences 2 feet all kinds of nonsense that had come out of the prohibitionists' control of cannabis developing here. So I still am a passionate advocate for a 2-permit system. Commercial, bigger, and 1,000 square foot craft, small. Different compromises in the existing code, because what we have done in the years since 2017, when our 10A17 was adopted, is tweak things. Now we've got conflicting things in the code that need to be addressed if indeed we can establish parity in the industry. As I spoke to the issue a couple of weeks ago about expansion or not, I presented numbers that showed if we went to a situation where there was expansion, it might benefit 5 to 10% of the existing operators. And that to me was going to be wrong. That to me was going to be prejudicial as well as controversial. So what I would like to propose again is that I can engage you two prior to the end of the year. I sent Supervisor Haschek a packet of information 6 weeks ago regarding a dual license system that could be accommodated in this county and satisfy everybody's needs. In the small area of cultivation, we need direct-to-consumer sales, as you say, and we need a viable structure for a micro-business license that can apply to a small cultivator and benefit the small cultivator. I want to explore these ideas with this group, because otherwise you're going to have a small number of people who might expand, and you're going to have more and more and more small farmers failing. Thank you.
And just a reply, Corinne, is that I do have a meeting with Planning and Building who oversees the micro business license. And so we're looking at that, and hopefully I'll bring it back in October to the GGC as an issue to kind of look into more to see what our, I'm trying to figure out what our options are.
Well, and I
Okay.
encourage you to perhaps take a proactive attitude into changing regulations that have been part of the problem, where it doesn't necessarily impact environment, anything. It's just a mindset.
Yeah, that's what we're looking into.
Thanks very much for doing.
All right. So, any other public comment online?
My name's Kelly Mayhew. I'm a cultivator and one of the founders of Leaf Labs. And we have a situation here where, I think both of these ideologies can coexist, whether or not we expand. I just listened to, the idea that there's a conflict between the maybe 5 to 10% that would be able to, and I get it, most people probably can't economically or maybe just based on their resources, water, land. But whether those few that can expand are allowed or not isn't going to make a single bit of difference for the small farmers who want to have direct-to-consumer or small farm businesses. The state of California already blew that way out of the water once they started allowing all these major use operations to go on all over the state. And that's where I think we need to come to terms, is that the state's already allowed us all to be put way under, and we're all way under. If we can allow anybody, 5, 10% of this community to maybe get a snorkel up and get a little oxygen and be able to keep their businesses alive, that's revenue for this county. That's keeping this dream alive. It's, it's keeping purpose in all this work that we've all done. So, with that said, I just want to, say peace to the small farmers and peace to the large farmers. Like, we're all in this together. It's not really an us versus them. It might seem that way because we're all getting our heads pushed underwater, But local cannabis, a single acre for those few that can do it here in Mendocino County is not going to change a thing when it comes to the market. The market's still going to be what it is. It's huge. California cannabis is a massive momentum, all sort of down to the bottom. And that's where we're at. We're at this $300 pound bottom, and that's probably not going to change. So I urge you guys to keep that conversation alive, and I'll try to strike up more courage to come up here and speak more often, because I've just been terrified to get on this mic ever since all these things have started. So thank you for your attention to this matter.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming up and speaking. We could have heard more from you. It would have been helpful.
Okay, so seeing no further comment, that is that a new comment? Hurry up.
I think that it is time for Mendocino County to also get behind the branding of cannabis from Mendocino County. There is a lot that the county can support, can do in coordination with all farmers that will help benefit the economic development of the industry. I mean, off the top of my head, the county can sponsor fairs. The county can sponsor tourism, canna-tourism. Every time I hear a Visit Mendocino, the dream is real, or whatever it is, the magic is real, I'm thinking, yeah, there's some people drinking wine, there's some people looking very happy. There should be cannabis in our presentation and our county promotion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we had a motion. We had a second.
Through the chair, if I may, I just want to make it clear for the record, there is no public comment online.
Okay. Call the question.
Supervisor Hashek?
Yes.
Supervisor McGordy?
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, so we're on to item 2B, which is discussion and possible action, including providing a referral to the Board of Supervisors recommending approval of an amendment to Agreement 23-074 with Ascent Environmental, extending the agreement date from December 31st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025. I'll look to staff for comment.
Sarah McBurney, Mendocino Cannabis Department. Yes, so item 2B is an amendment to the already existing contract with Ascent Environmental. As stated in item 2C with our EIR update, the EIR is expected to be finalized or certified sometime in October of 2024. This amendment will allow Ascent to utilize LJAGP grant funding through the last expenditure date to really focus on the site-specific review and site-specific addenda for Mendocino County, operating as our procured vendor for the EIR.
All right, any questions from the board? Supervisor McGordy.
I move the recommended action.
I'll second that. Thank you for bringing that forward.
Supervisor Haschak, did we take public comment on this?
I'm going to. Okay, public comment. Seeing none? Online comment?
Seeing none.
Okay, we'll call the question.
Supervisor McGordy?
Yes.
Supervisor Hashek?
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, so we're moving on to item 3A is approval of minutes of June 26, 2024, regular meeting.
I move approval.
Okay. I'll second it. I just wanted to make a comment. Pulling it. Okay, on item 2C, which was discussed at the last meeting, and it was action was upon motion by Supervisor McGorty, seconded by Supervisor Haschak. It is ordered that the General Government Committee refers to the Board of Supervisors a discussion of illegal cannabis cultivation sites within unincorporated areas of Mendocino County, potential environmental impacts, and encouraging property owners to prioritize voluntary cleanup efforts when the ad hoc report had been released. Okay, so we approved that. And so my understanding in talking to the clerk of the board is that you would have to bring it up to the board as an item. Okay, if that's going to happen. Okay, so with that, any public comment on the approval of the minutes? Seeing none?
Seeing none online, and for the record, Chambers is clear of the public.
Okay. So, call the question.
Supervisor Haschak?
Yes.
Supervisor McGorty?
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 3B, public expression. From the public, no one in the chambers?
No public online.
All right. Then we'll go to announcements. Item 3C. Supervisor?
None for me.
Okay, none for me either at this point. So it's 11:20 and we'll adjourn the meeting.